Hi everyone, and welcome back to Dimensional Wellness. This is DeeDee, and I'm so glad to be here with you, exchanging some energy today. It's a full moon in Sagittarius when I'm doing this, and my energy is kind of everywhere. So excuse me as I'm kind of warming myself up and, getting back into my vibes. It's been a very interesting day, as most days are. So anyways, hi everyone. Hope that you are having a great full moon in Sagittarius. The full moon came and went, so of course I'm not going to be doing a full moon scripting for this one. But my intentions are to do the moon scripting for the next one. So today we're going to be doing a very interesting dream tidbit. This one was really, really, really interesting. And I'm still kind of like putting the pieces together about exactly what it was talking about. Because like I say in probably a few of my dream tidbits, I'm not always exactly sure what it's talking about and all of the different pieces, but eventually it all starts to come together in this very interesting, synchronistic way. So, today we're going to be talking about the very, very old vampiress. Kind of like a vampiress. This is going to be an interesting one. So, in this dream, like most of these type of dreams start off with, and I know it's going to be something interesting because I just kind of wake up in the dream in the middle of somewhere and I have to kind of figure out what's going on. So, it takes me usually a while to kind of orient to my surroundings, figure out what's going on, what I'm doing there, and, kind of how I'm supposed to be helping out with something. Because usually these dreams are either where I am not seen and I am pulling information about something or gathering information about something or being shown something, or there's someone that I'm supposed to be helping. Okay. So this dream started off where I was walking down this kind of sort of cobblestone street. They have like a few cobblestone streets in New Orleans. And it wasn't like the big, huge pebbles. These were smaller pebbles, but it was definitely like a type of cobblestone street. Now, the interesting thing about it is that it looked like a ghost town. So I was standing on this long street that looked like a ghost town. Honestly, what it reminded me of is if you've ever been to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, there is a huge street in Gatlinburg. And it really reminded me of that street, which leads you down to Dolly Parton World. I don't know if that's what it's called, but, the Dolly Parton theme park. I'm not even sure if it's still open, but, anyways, and like kind of like downtown Nashville, kind of like very quaint, very small kind of street. Okay. And like I said, it was a ghost town. There was nobody out there. And I didn't even have a car. I was just like walking. And so it's like you can just like see the wind rolling in and dust. I'm like, where in the world am I and how did I get here? And so I'm walking down, I'm looking at, like these kind of smaller mom and pop shops. And, I think there's like a, like a kind of tool place, a kind of metal shop or something. I don't know exactly, but that was like the feel of it. It wasn't necessarily Wild Wild West kind of feeling, but like it could go there. And so anyways, as I'm walking down the street, I noticed something that was out of place, which was this very interesting old kind of church looking place. And it was at a place because the architecture looked like unmistakably Italian, I guess. Whereas the rest of the buildings looked more like Wild Wild West kind of. And so I thought it was very strange. It was just like kind of like in the middle of this, long street. And it looked like it was being kept up. That was also very interesting. Everything else looked kind of dust ridden, people haven't washed the windows in a long time. But this church looked relatively taken care of. Now, the other thing is that the church doors were open. Like, there actually weren't any church doors. It was open, almost like they were trying to make it like a outside kind of church. I don't know how to describe it. But there weren't any front doors to the church. It was just open. And then when you stepped inside, because of course I knew that's where I was supposed to go. Once you stepped inside where the doors would be, there's a long hallway with rooms and things to the right. And I didn't want to go down that way. But that was also open as well. And then there was like another set of doors that was actually a set of doors, and it could close, but it also had like an open feel to it. But there was an enclosure. So it was like the beginning of the church was open, and then when you got deeper into the church, it was actually enclosed. And so as I'm kind of walking around and looking at the church and stuff, I realized that there's some type of food giveaway or something going on, or some type of potluck or something, which I also thought was weird. Because I'm like, how do people even know about this church to come and give food or whatever, Like, it's just like such an odd place to just exist in. Like I said, I didn't see any cars outside, so I was trying to think how they even got to the church. And so as I'm kind of like walking around to see if I'm going to get a plate, because at this point, I don't know who I'm there to talk to. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I decided to kind of try to get a plate. And as I'm getting a plate, I realized that no one can see me. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just supposed to be observing. So I sit down at these pews. And I noticed that there's this huge group of teenagers. Okay, huge group of teenagers. They could have been like first year of college. I mean, going into college, you're still 18, 19. I was 17, so teenagers, but definitely like maybe first year of college, maybe freshman or something like that. Still have a high school, but I'm getting older and, I'm a young adult now kind of vibes, And so there's this one guy that I'm focusing in on who is clearly the leader of this group of kids. So they could have been like 9 kids, maybe 10. It was a nice group size. And they also look like, they don't just know each other. So I decided to sit there, long enough. You sit there, you listen to things and everything. So anyways, this kid would have like blonde hair, it kind of remind me of like from Harry Potter, Draco Malfoy. He kind of reminded me of that. Blonde hair, very slender, black turtleneck, really nice put together clothes, blah, 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 blah. And there's also another blonde girl, but they were the only 2 blondes in the group. Everyone else had darker hair. Now, they were all, from what I can remember, European-looking, definitely, like, quote-unquote, stereotypical European-looking people. I did not see a lot of, like, First Nation-looking people. I didn't see a lot of African-looking people, phenotypically, right? Because, of course, like light skin and blonde hair and, darker skin and darker eyes doesn't necessarily mean they come from a specific place necessarily, right? That's more about your tribe and who your family is. But they pretty much look like they were stereotypically European phenotype. And so I'm kind of listening in, and I get the feeling that they are all meeting up at this church, that they are all extended family. They're all extended family that happen to go to schools that were in similar areas to each other. And they all got pulled to each other in some type of way by the blonde boy. Now, the blonde boy seemed like he had been working with some type of energy, who was basically instructing him on who was related to him and to form a group of people who were related to them. And this energy, it's just like a person being like, yeah, I've got a spirit guide named blah, 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 blah. And they think that we should do this and this and this, right? And so anyways, that was what was going on. So the blonde boy had the spirit guide, we'll say very loosely right now, spirit guide. And they were all forming this group and listening to him based on what he was telling them, okay? And so I'm listening, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, all right. And so what is this spirit telling you to do? Now, like I said, I'm not talking to them because they can't see me. I'm just observing and listening in on the conversation. So as they get to talking, you can clearly see the cliques in the group as far as who is like the superior cousins and who are just like the straggling cousins that are just kind of there because they're there kind of situation. And it seemed like they needed a certain amount of people along with this group that they were forming. So they needed a certain amount of cousins. And I'm assuming that that's why some of the other cousins were there, was because they needed a certain amount of cousins in general to be a part of this group. So as I'm listening some more, I start to get the picture that this blonde boy's guide wants them to do some type of ritual, that there is the full moon, much like today. There's the full moon going on, and this guide wanted them to do some type of ritual for the full moon. And the ritual for the full moon, actually, I think I'm going to get back in the car and turn on the air. Yeah, all the kids are like out for, well, they're not all out for summer, but it feels like they're all out for summer. And so my office is not really super open for me to be doing stuff in there right now. So I'm going to sit in here and do this for a second because it's still hot out there, okay? Okay. Okay, so this blonde boy's guy wanted them to do a full moon ritual to bring her back to life, okay? And so when he was talking about this, he was like, yeah, she wants us to bring her back to life. That's what the ritual is for tonight. So they were like discussing this ritual. And that's when my ears started really perking up, because at this point I'm like, who wants you to bring them back on the full moon? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you've been in the spiritual community a while and you have an open mind, you get brought down a lot of very interesting paths, to say the least bit, okay? To say the very least. I've heard a lot of different things, and there are still things that I have yet to hear, which is even crazier. I've heard a lot of things. But when he said that this spirit guy was talking to him and that she wanted him, not just him, but this whole group to help bring her back, I immediately knew that he was talking to a very specific energy. And it's very interesting because it's not like I didn't believe that he was talking to someone. But, there's variations of hearing them. And when he started talking about all the specific instructions she was giving, I realized that this spirit guide, like I said, I'm using that very lightly, spirit guide, was very close to him, as far as if she was able to talk to him directly where he could hear her instructions clearly, And he was actually making moves in the physical world to actually mobilize people together, and needed a specific amount of people to, quote unquote, bring her back on a full moon, which is like not typically resurrection time. I mean, usually resurrection time is the new moon. That's when you're adding things to your life. That's when you're filling up with energy, is the full moon, new moon to the full moon phase, when you're filling the moon up with intention. And so I thought it was very interesting that she was trying to create this bloodline link with all of these kids who really didn't understand what she was saying, on a full moon. So that's when my ears really start perking up. And I was like, oh, okay. In some type of way, I'm supposed to be stopping this, because this kid thinks that he knows what he's talking about, but he has no idea what he's talking about, because there are certain key things he's talking about, which means that this is going to take really high magic. And usually when it's high magic and it's like not a lot of morals involved, it could be high dark magic, usually there's a death that usually has to occur in some type of form. And so I was like, okay, we're here to be saving somebody's life today. Okay, cool. So as he's talking, I kind of like tune out, because now I'm looking more intently at the group, because now I'm like, okay, let me see who they're going to try to offer up. They're not going to offer up the blonde boy. He's the direct connection to this energy. They're not going to offer up the other blonde girl, because there's a superiority complex, and for whatever reason they think that blonde hair means that you are closer to whatever. And I'm like, there's a lot of brown head people to choose from, but there's always that one person who doesn't even have like a group, who's like the lone wolf. And I was like, that's usually who they're going to pick. And so I found her. And like clockwork, as they're talking, you can start to see on her face, you can start to read her energy that she doesn't feel like she's really there. She, for the right reasons, or she doesn't know why she's there. She doesn't know why people chose her, feeling very unworthy, which in a spiritual sense means that this energy that's talking to the blonde boy is not talking to her, which means that the energy that's talking to the blonde boy doesn't find her that valuable. And so I'm like, okay, that's the one I need to keep an eye on, because she's probably going to be the one. Now, as I'm still kind of listening in, I'm kind of like trying to put all the pieces together. I realize that he doesn't know that there is going to be a sacrifice. He does not know that this is why these people are here. Now, the interesting thing is that as the night kind of goes on, and, there's some witching hour, I guess, that they're waiting on, she finally tells him that there's going to be someone who has got to be the willing sacrifice. And it was very, very specific that it was going to be a willing sacrifice. Someone willingly going to give up their life for her to materialize into the physical realm. So by this time, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are messing with something that they don't even know. And then I'm looking at myself like, am I equipped for this? Because, they're about to spiritually link themselves together, which means that she's going to be dealing literally with the energy of 9 or 10 beings that I'm assuming are from her bloodline. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I step into? And so they're like talking amongst themselves. They kind of break off into groups, because now there's a whole nother element to this where it's like getting real. And now they're like discussing. So of course the girl that I looked at and I was like, okay, she's the one that they're gonna, choose. Like clockwork, she leaves, and she goes away. Now, as she left, I'm still listening, and I start to see his spirit guide. Okay. Oh my goodness. As soon as I saw her, because it's like she started walking towards him, and I knew that she was really, really close to the third dimension. I don't know how to really describe this, because I'm trying to use like terms that people like would understand, and I'm not saying like that is a super complicated thing. I'm just saying I don't know what we have collectively decided to call these things. But she was starting to materialize into the physical, so I could see her. Whereas before, it was only him that could see her. And so now I was starting to see her, which meant that she was starting to anchor herself here, right? Like, the best I can describe it is when you see like an apparition of a loved one or something. They can appear, but they usually appear for a very brief moment, maybe a little bit more than brief, and come and talk, but they cannot stay. And even when they do appear, it might be that they appear only in your reality, or they might appear, someone that's close to you that also knew them, they might be able to appear to both. But for them to appear in front of a wide variety of people who don't actually have a connection to them, there's more that has to be done for that, let's say, like, apparition of them to stay anchored long enough for that to actually happen. It's very trippy, but anyways, so immediately when I saw her, I knew that the form she was in was very, very drastically different than when I knew her. I recognized her as a very, very old vampire. And I knew that her name was, I won't say that her name was Belle. It was Bella or something along those lines that she would be called. But that's really more of what she is associated to is Bella, right? Like, my name is Deshandra, but I am not I am not Deshandra. I'm not the only Deshandra, because Deshandra is a description of the moon, of the shining or of the bright light. And so names and titles are referring to something that you can be identified by, but it is not actually what it is, right? Like, we watch movies and we see names, and the names trigger us to be like, oh, this is this person. But there are many Johns in the world. There are many Smiths in the world. But what you hope to do is that you put together a combination of adjectives, pretty much what names are, combination of adjectives to describe someone, so that when you are putting these names together, you get a specific person that you're thinking about. So there are other Deshandras. So if you just call out Deshandra in the universe, there might be a lot of Deshandras that pop up. But Deshandra, with my specific 1,500 names that I have, then the universe is like, oh, you're talking about this particular being. So anyways, I'm just saying that to say that her name wasn't Bella, but that is an identifier of her. And when I say that she looked very different than what I remember, is that immediately there was an ancient connection that I had to this being. And I recognized her by her atoms in her body. But the form that she was taking, which I'm gonna explain in a second, is very, very different from what I remember her atoms looking like. Looking like before. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't really sound crazy when I start to use examples. Like, if you've ever had a dream where you can't actually see a person, but you can make out the energy that's in the room. This is different than somebody being invisible and you can totally not sense them. This is somebody being invisible, and there's something about the way that the air moves that you can see an outline of something even though they are totally transparent. This is the energy of what I'm talking about. So the atoms, her spirit that I was looking at, I recognized it immediately as a very, very old and ancient being. I immediately recognized her. But the form that she was taking on was very new. So in her appearance, she was very, very pale. And I could see why she chose the blonde boy, because she had platinum blonde hair. Very much looked like old money Italian, you know, like what are the, like the Versace family, you know, blonde hair, you know, sleek bun, no hair out of place, perfect donut bun behind her head, bright red lipstick, extremely pale skin, very slender, looks like a wisp in the wind when she walks. Very beautiful, like wine colored dress. I mean, just if you know what you're looking at, it's very obvious that she was taking on a vampire persona or archetype, I would say. But to someone, let's say, like, quote unquote uninitiated into these things, she would seem like a very, very high class woman from a very old family. And so I was like, oh my gosh, not her. Not her again. And it's like I hadn't seen her, it felt like, for eons. Like I can't even really describe to you on how old she was. I feel like that sounds so bad, but I'm not even talking about like she was 90. I'm talking about she was like thousands of years old, and it's like my soul remembers her from like 15 lives ago. I don't know. It was very interesting. And so when I saw her show up, I was like, okay, I need to go get this girl, because they're dealing with something that they don't understand at all. And that's why she's going to teenagers, because they don't understand, but yet they're still powerful enough to be able to help out. And so anyways, when I saw her show up, I was like, let me go find this other girl, because she don't know she about to be dinner today. And so I find her, and as I'm walking up to her, I see that there is this guy who is full vamp right now, and he is like seconds away from biting her. Now, she can't see him because all of a sudden she decided she wanted to start doing laundry. Which now I'm thinking about it, and there is a laundry woman archetype from Celtic mythology, I believe. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but she decided to start doing laundry, and the laundry archetype is this old story about laundry women. And if you saw a laundry woman by the banks washing your clothes, it was an omen that you are going to die, especially if you were in war, or, you know, if you saw your son's clothes being washed. They were harbingers to let you know that harbingers of death, to let you know that death was coming. And so anyway, she was washing her own clothes, and I was like, oh my gosh. Now I'm putting that together now, because I didn't really know about this archetype at the time, but I will send you the video I'll link the video of the, how I found this archetype. Now, in the video, he doesn't know the laundry woman archetype, but the laundry woman archetype is very connected to something else that I have dreamed about. And so I was like, oh yeah, this must be in mythology stories. So anyways, she's washing her own clothes, and she doesn't even sense this vampire about to eat her. Now, I know that this male vampire is the blonde woman's son, okay, but he's dark-haired. And he's totally out of control, like completely different from Mom, like very fresh, very brand new, like out of control. He's gonna mess up the whole situation, you know, like that type of energy. And so I had to save her from him first, and then I compelled her, you know, like you see like in the vampire TV shows where vampires have the, you know, ability to like compel people to do whatever. So I had to compel her to like walk away from this place and never come back to it, and do not contact these people anymore. And so I did that. And so anyways, as I'm doing that, nobody can still see me. And so now they're all like starting this process. They still haven't chosen who they're going to give up, but they're going to go ahead and start the process. So they start this process of doing these affirmations and linking themselves to each other and like this whole kind of seance situation. And then they all start seeing her. And then that's when people start freaking out, because they realize that like, this is a real thing. And they knew that it was a real thing, but not the level of it. They thought that, you know, they would be linking themselves and then maybe somebody would start channeling or something. But they didn't know that she was actually going to appear in the flesh. Okay. And so then she appeared in front of all of them. All of them were able to see her. And so as they're all talking, she's like, you know, and now I need the one who's going to be the willing sacrifice. I need an exchange of energy. And so, of course, they were going to choose that girl. And so now I'm like, okay, I compelled her to leave. And now what am I going to do? So I had to like leave the church, and then I decided to come back. So there's a room, a gathering room that everybody was planning to be in because they chose the girl that I sent away. So when she came back, they were going to just kind of give her up and then just hope that she was willing to go. So there's like a meeting room that they were planning to have everything go down in. And so I was seeing it as they're doing it, and they start calling out for her to come and find them, you know, and like they were going to ambush her kind of with this woman, like, hey, this is his guide and she needs a sacrifice, let's do it. You know, it's kind of like not giving her a lot of time, a whole lot of shock. You know, shock and awe, and, you know, wouldn't be thinking correctly. But if they could get her to be a willing sacrifice, even if she didn't exactly know what that meant, then the ritual would be complete. And so what I decided to do is I decided to go around the back to the door that was closer to this meeting door. And then I just took on this girl's form. Yes, I literally just became the girl. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to become her and then see if they can buy me some more time, because I'm not sure what's going to happen. And so anyways, basically I have to pretend like I'm shocked or whatever. So anyways, I walk into the room as the girl, and so everyone immediately is like bombarding a whole bunch of information. This is Bella. She's coming. She's actually physically here. You know, like they're trying to like hype it up, like, you won't believe it. Wait till you meet her. You're going to love her. Like, we didn't know that it was a thing, and we're sorry you weren't involved, and blah, 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 blah. And then the blonde boy starts talking to her. You know, everybody's like showing her all this attention now, you know, when like they're barely talking to her before, which is me right now. And so everybody's like, yeah, and the last thing that we need you to do is to get on this ladder. They have like this ladder. They want me to climb the ladder, and they wanted me to screw in a light bulb. And so they're like, yeah, she's going to need like a willing participant to screw in this light bulb for her. Now, of course, that didn't make no sense. And I was like, okay. And so anyways, I go up. Oh, look at the black cat. There's like a family of neighborhood black cats that are always jumping on everybody's roofs throughout the day, which is really fun. So anyways, I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds really great. You know, like faking the funk. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And it wasn't that I didn't have like any plan in mind, but I was trying to figure out like what plan could I do that would not kill this vampires. I'm not the killing type. Kill this vampire, but also really incapacitate her until we figured out. And I don't know who we is, but I knew it was a part of a we that we were going to do with her, and how we were going to kind of catch her off guard to figure out what to do. So anyway, she walks in, and immediately she's trying to go for the jugular, okay? And so I literally like grab her face, and in that moment I was like, her whole life is in my hands right now. And it could go either way. It could be really simple. I could just go ahead and suck all the energy out of her right now, and she probably turn to dust, you know. Well, the body at least, because the spirit is not dust, you know. The body is clay. And then, you know, like I pretty much would be connected to her. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And so as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, I woke up. And I was a little bit irritated by that because I was like, man, I don't know what decision I ended up making. And quantumly, I don't know if I woke up before I was able to make a decision and it didn't actually go how I thought that it went. But there'll probably be some more information on that later. Hopefully there'll be some information on that later because I actually don't even know how it went. Clearly, DeeDee took way too much time. Now, the interesting thing that I will say is that once I grabbed her face, she couldn't see me at first. She thought it was this girl at first. But once I grabbed her face, like, and I kind of like face palmed her, she could see me after that, and we like locked eyes, and there was like, oh my gosh, I remember you. And I was like, yeah, I remember you, and you still seem to be up to your old tricks. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And I guess I'll go ahead and just like mention, that, you know, I talked about it before. I'll go ahead and mention the video. The significance of that video that I'm going to link is that it talks about Dido and Anna. The video talks about Dido and Anna, her sister, which is talking about, of course, Queen Dido of Carthage, and her sister, who's supposed to be Anna, that they believe also could have been based on Anna Perina, or Perina. And he is breaking down the language translation, and it's talking about Dido and her sister, and Dido ends up marrying into a royal family. And her sister is not too happy about it. Neither one of them seem to be too happy about it, because this family that she's married into seem to be not very morally sound people. Especially when it comes to, it seems like they were some type of oracles or something, and that they had let this family know that they shouldn't go to war, that they were not going to win a war. But it seemed like on the physical plane, at least, the men were in charge and the men decided to go to war anyway. And it seemed like they had given them sort of a riddle as an answer, which should have been like an obvious don't go. But it didn't seem like it was an obvious don't go for the men because they were looking for victory. And so in this painting, and as he's talking about it, you realize that they are the washerwomen washing the clothes of this family, that it is foretelling that the family will die. And it's very interesting because I had a dream back in 2019 probably, where there was a guy who I listened to on YouTube, and he ended up in a dream with me, and who I came to understand was my fairy godmother. Yes, an actual fairy godmother. She looked like a miniature woman with wings, okay? I'm telling you, I've seen so much stuff in the spirit world, like, you have no clue. Even I know, like, when I was a kid, I used to see things that you wouldn't expect to be in reality, but that's a whole nother conversation. Not for today. So anyways, in this dream, we're like in this void kind of space, and I see the guy from YouTube on my right, and then I see the fairy godmother on my left, and they are arguing with each other, okay? They are fussing down. And I feel kind of like a kid looking at two family members. They weren't married to each other, but two family members arguing with each other. Okay, and so like I'm kind of kicking my feet and I can't hear it, but I can see it. And I'm like, ooh, they're really angry. And like, I wonder what they're fighting about. And so they're like really going at it, really fussing, really arguing. And so the next thing I know, I see the gentleman, and he is facing towards me and yelling. And I'm like, oh, I guess he's upset with me. And And so I have to like actively tune into him. And as I start tuning into him and like the energy signatures that are coming off of him, so I couldn't hear them, but I could literally see like these O's of energy, of like their energy waves towards each other. That's what I could see. And so anyways, the energy waves are starting to come towards me, and I was like, oh, I need to probably tune in. I guess they're sound waves. I was like, I guess I need to tune in to actually hear what he's saying. Like, it has to be like an effort. And so finally I was able to hear what he was saying, and I realized that he wasn't angry at me, he was angry at her. And the kind of gist of it was that he felt like it was time for me to know something. She felt like it wasn't time for me to know something. I don't know if she thought that it was even super relevant for me to even know it, or really, better yet, really remember it. She didn't seem to be in favor of that. But he felt like it was pertinent for me to know it and to remember it. And so I realized that he was yelling because he thought that yelling was going to help me hear him, which did not work. It was just about me intending to hear him. And so anyways, as I started hearing him, I'm like, yes, I can hear you now. And as he was talking to me, he was speaking in a language that I could not recognize. And I was like, yep, I got nothing for you. Like, I don't know what you're saying, don't know what you're talking about. And so as I was telling him that, he showed me, and this is like the funniest thing. First he stopped, and then he just was like, okay, I'm gonna just go with some words, because then she'll understand the words. And so first thing he said was Carthage. Now, Carthage, it was very easy for me to understand that. I was like, Carthage. Okay, cool. And then the next name he said after that, I didn't know what he was saying, because I didn't recognize the language that he was talking about, or that this name was in. And so I was like, nope, don't know. You know, I couldn't tell, like, I know that it's a name now, but when he was saying it, I didn't know if it was a name or a place. Like, I didn't know if, you know, Carthage was a person. I mean, it didn't sound like a person, but you never know. And so I was like, okay, Carthage and who or what are you saying? And so he showed me this couple on Facebook, and he was like, Carthage Queen something. I couldn't understand it. And I was like, okay. So he showed me this couple, and their name is Alyssa, and oh my gosh, I can't remember her partner's name right now. But it's like this white woman and this black guy, Charles, Alyssa and Charles. And he was like, Alyssa, Carthage Queen Alyssa. He was like, you need to remember this. And so I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll write it down. Thank you. And so I was immediately out of the dream after that. And that's how I knew that they really wanted me to write that down and really look into it, because I was immediately out of the dream. So I did not have time to forget it. It was a very quick transition. And so immediately I went and looked up Queen Carthage Alyssa. And I ended up coming across Queen Dido, who is in fact called Alashia, which another pronunciation of that is Alyssa. And they also call her Elishat, which is what he was telling me, Queen Elishat. But I didn't know what an Elishat was. Okay, I'm like, I got nothing. So Elishat is Alyssa, Alashia. That's how I'm assuming that you pronounce it. And she is supposed to be the mythological founder of Carthage in North Africa. She's supposed to be from now I'm saying supposed to be, this is a historical person. I'm just saying that her historical records, I have not been able to really trace her historical records. Now that's probably because I don't live in Sidon, live in Tyre to get the history of it. Or North Africa for that matter. But I've had a few dreams since then that have put certain pieces together. Now, I don't know exactly in what way I'm connected to her, but they wanted me to know about her. It's so interesting because now my stomach is starting to hurt. So I'm going to take a little break, but it's going to seem like a quick pause. I'm going to take a little break and come back in.